Welcome to the Coaches Hub podcast, powered by Soccer Profile. Behind every young footballer is a home that shapes their mindset, motivation, and love for the game. While coaches develop players on the pitch, parents build the foundation of it. In this episode, we'll share simple ways to create a supportive soccer home with balanced routines, a growth mindset, and motivation that lasts. Because the best development starts where it matters most, at home. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are putting the spotlight on, well, maybe the most crucial yet often overlooked player in youth football development.
And that's the parent.
Exactly. We're moving the camera entirely off the pitch today. We're focusing on that home advantage, the internal operating system that really determines things like confidence, motivation, resilience.
That's right. And look, this isn't a conversation about whether you should be coaching free kicks in the garden. Not at all.
No.
This is much more about being let's call it the performance architect for your young player. You know, coaches focus on the tactical skill development.
Sure, on the field stuff.
Right. But parents, you shape the foundation, the mindset, the emotional regulation, the energy levels they need to sustain high-level performance, often over many years.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty laser-focused. We're going to extract the most powerful, actionable advice we can from the guidance shared by our listener. It seems mostly sourced from this really comprehensive resource called the Coaches Hub.
Yeah, it looks like really solid stuff.
And this material, it's designed specifically to help parents become supportive allies, not, accidental roadblocks in their child's journey.
And the key takeaway we really want you, the listener, to walk away with is understanding that your role, it's about providing a safety net and a runway. It's not about adding more pressure.
Right.
You need to know how to maximize their potential without overwhelming them, preventing that scenario where the home environment accidentally becomes, I think the resource material called a tactical war room.
Tactical war room. Okay. Yeah, we definitely want to avoid that. So this all starts with structure, right?
Right.
Which delivers security. Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
So the foundational pillar we really pulled out is the absolute necessity of a consistent routine. Now, I know this sounds like maybe generic parenting advice.
Yeah, it seems basic.
But when you're dealing with high-performance youth sport, the stakes are just much higher. Predictability, balance, they aren't just nice-to-haves. They're crucial components for managing, cognitive load.
Absolutely. I mean, when a young athlete is trying to balance tough training, schoolwork, maybe a social life, their brain is constantly making decisions.
It's overloaded.
Yeah. So by automating things like sleep times, study habits, nutrition, you actually reduce that decision fatigue. It leaves more mental energy for performance, for focus on the pitch.
Exactly. And the source material, the Coaches Hub stuff, it breaks down the necessary elements for this kind of competitive routine. It starts with clear, consistent scheduling.
Right.
Making sure the child knows exactly when training is, matches, travel, all of that. But it also mandates really strongly dedicated time for homework and study.
That's crucial because if school performance slips, the stress from that, it just undermines the whole athletic side of things.
Totally. And then there are the health fundamentals, which we can't just gloss over. We're talking consistent, performance-optimized nutrition, hydration. But probably the most specific and, let's be honest, urgent modern challenge is sleep. The guidance we looked at is pretty much non-negotiable on a consistent sleep schedule.
For recovery and focus.
Yes. And it specifically calls out limiting screen time, particularly in that hour before bed.
The screen time battle. Every parent knows that one.
And that's really where the rubber meets the road. We know every parent struggles with that screen time before sleep fight.
Yeah.
But for an athlete whose recovery literally depends on deep sleep cycles, preserving that restorative sleep isn't just about arbitrary rules. It's actually a competitive necessity.
Okay, so the routine gives them a sense of control, which helps with anxiety.
Right, and it creates protected space for mental breaks. That's the antidote to burnout, really.
But hang on, what happens when you try to enforce this routine and your child pushes back? Maybe their teammates are staying up late, playing video games. How do you keep the routine strong without making them feel, isolated or overly disciplined compared to their friends?
That's a fantastic question, and it points to the difference between, say, enforcement and empowerment. The recommendation from the Hub material is to involve the child directly. Use a physical weekly planner, maybe a whiteboard or a big chart on the fridge so they actually feel some ownership over their time.
Make it visual.
Exactly. Then the conversation shifts from mom or dad says no to, okay, according to our performance plan, this time is blocked for recovery. It elevates the advice from just a parenting rule to athlete discipline.
I like that shifting ownership. That leads us nicely into the next big piece, doesn't it? The internal foundation, the growth mindset.
Yes. And football, maybe more than any other sport, is just a constant cycle of setbacks. You've got injuries, getting benched, tough losses, learning from mistakes.
It's relentless.
It is. And what's fascinating here is getting past just the textbook definition. The growth mindset isn't just a vague idea. It's the active belief fostered by the parent that ability is elastic. It can improve.
Right. Not fixed.
Not fixed. It improves through smart effort, relentless learning, deep persistence. It's the total opposite of that toxic idea that talent is just something you're born with, take it or leave it.
And the guidance here from the Coaches Hub, it's extremely specific on how parents can actually nurture this. It's about radically shifting the focus of your praise.
Okay, how so?
You have to praise the process, not just the product, the outcome. So instead of, wow, you scored 2 goals, you're a great striker, you might say something like, I was really proud of how hard you worked on your defensive transitions today, even after you made that mistake.
Right, focusing on the effort and the learning part.
Exactly.
But okay, this is where it gets a bit complex maybe. What happens when your child is putting in massive hours, high effort in training, doing everything right, but the results just aren't coming? They're still losing or they're still on the bench. How do you praise effort that doesn't seem to be, yielding fruit?
That's a really insightful question. And the guidance here is crucial. Parents need to learn to praise strategic effort.
Strategic effort. Okay.
Yeah, instead of just validating the volume of work you worked hard, focus on the deliberate practice. Yeah. You could ask something like, hey, I saw you trying that new passing sequence in the game today. That took courage, and it looked like you were thinking strategically. What did you learn from how the defender reacted to that?
Okay. So you're framing it as experimentation, not just brute force effort.
Precisely. It teaches them to view performance as learning, as gathering data, not just trying harder without direction.
And integrating that powerful little word yet is vital too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
If they say, I just can't master this skill, the response should always frame the future. You haven't mastered that skill yet. It just keeps the door open to future improvement, stops them internalizing failure as like a final judgment on their ability.
Yeah, that's so important. And we also need to quickly mention the pitfalls here. The source material warns parents very clearly to actively avoid using restrictive labels, things like natural talent.
Right, because that backfires, doesn't it?
Totally. When we label a child as naturally gifted, we unintentionally create this fear of failure. Because if they make a mistake, the implication is, oh, maybe I'm not naturally talented after all. And that just destroys resilience.
And if we connect this back, the mindset you actually model in your reaction to their failure, that becomes their own internal self-talk.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah. If you react with, say, fixed judgment or visible disappointment, even subtly, that's the voice they'll hear in their head the next time they mess up on the pitch.
Wow. Okay. So when the mindset is resilient, the player can withstand the long haul, the ups and downs. But resilience, it's constantly tested by one thing, isn't it? Fluctuating motivation, especially during those long grinding seasons.
Exactly. Burnout is real, and the material we looked at details specific strategies for maintaining motivation. It's about ensuring the balance tips firmly towards joy, towards the love of the game, because burnout almost always starts when that external pressure outweighs the intrinsic passion.
So what does that look like practically? We need to focus on proactive celebration, right? And again, not just the scoreline.
Definitely not just the scoreline. Celebrate improvement, however small. Celebrate positive body language, especially after a mistake. Celebrate exceptional teamwork, leadership moments, especially when the team loses.
Finding the internal wins.
Finding the internal wins, yes. Those are the internal metrics of success that sustain them. And parents should regularly, maybe casually, have conversations about the child's why.
Their reason for playing.
Yeah, reminding them what they genuinely love about the game. Was it the friendships, the thrill of competition, just the joy of movement? You need to keep that emotional connection alive. And critically, you have to keep the game fun outside of the structured club environment.
Right, so we're talking about maybe just kicking a ball around in the park, street football style, setting up casual skill challenges in the garden.
Yeah, or even just some playful 1v1s. Those moments, they remind the player that the game exists beyond the high-stakes pressure of organized training and matches. It reconnects them to the joy.
That makes sense.
And, importantly, you must allow rest without guilt. A rest day isn't weakness. Sometimes a planned, intentional break is actually the single most effective motivation booster there is.
Because pushing through exhaustion just leads to injury or emotional collapse eventually.
Often, yeah. Which ties into the next piece.
That emphasis on emotional well-being leads us perfectly into what I think is maybe the most profound section of this guidance. The parent's role as the emotional anchor. When young players experience those crushing defeats or intense pressure, maybe unfair criticism, they need an anchor. They don't need another coach or, drill sergeant ready to critique the offside trap 5 minutes after the final whistle.
Absolutely not. The child needs a safe, supportive presence, someone who always sees the person first and the player second. The source materials really stress that your primary function, especially right after a match, is to help them navigate their feelings, not to process tactical data.
Okay, but how do you listen effectively without jumping in to offer solutions? Especially if they ask for them. Like, say your child has been benched for 3 games straight and asks you, "Dad, what do I need to do to start?" And maybe you even know the coach is focusing on their fitness levels.
That's the classic trap, isn't it? You feel you should give the answer.
Right.
But you have to resist that urge to step into the coach's shoes or offer a technical fix. Instead, the advice is validate the feeling first.
Wow.
Wow, it sounds incredibly frustrating to be sitting on the bench when you want to be out there contributing.
Acknowledge the emotion.
Yes. Then you gently shift the ownership back to them. Ask something like, what steps do you think you might need to take to address that feedback from the coach?
So you acknowledge their pain, but you encourage their problem solving.
Exactly. It empowers them rather than you just giving them the answer. And crucially, related to this, we need to encourage emotional openness, not push them to just toughen up.
Yeah, that old chestnut.
Let them talk about being angry or disappointed or even jealous of a teammate who's playing well. These are real, valid emotions. If they aren't validated, they just fester and they will impact performance down the line.
So your emotional support, just being that non-judgmental space for them, that's actually the most powerful form of coaching they'll ever receive.
I genuinely believe that. It builds their confidence as a person, which translates directly into resilience on the pitch and constantly reminding them gently that their identity is much, much larger than their athletic performance. That's the ultimate safety measure against the pressures of the game.
Okay, so we've covered routine, mindset, motivation, emotional support. Let's look now at the physical space they inhabit, creating what the Coaches Hub calls a growth-friendly environment.
Right, and this is about the difference between a home that's focused purely on, say, winning trophies and displaying them, and one that's focused on long-term development, curiosity, and learning.
It's not just about the furniture, it's the vibe.
Exactly. It's about the language used around the house, the opportunities available, even the nonverbal signals you send. Are you emphasizing continuous learning and effort, or are you only ever talking about the scoreboard?
And the Coaches Hub outlines some incredibly simple, practical steps here. Things like, for intellectual curiosity, making sure you have books or maybe documentaries accessible about inspiring athletes.
And importantly, athletes who overcame challenges. Not just the superstars who seem to have it easy. Stories of resilience.
Good point. And what about facilitating that spontaneous practice?
Yeah, if you have the space, even a small space, putting up a rebounder or small goal in the garden, it just encourages experimentation without the pressure of a coach watching. It lets them play, lets them develop skills organically.
And changing the dinner table conversation. Ditch that tired old question, did you win?
Please.
And replace it with something like, what did you learn today? Either about yourself or about teamwork, or maybe tell me about a moment where you felt like you truly supported a teammate.
Focusing on those process goals again. And the final critical point here, I think, is knowing when to switch off.
Yeah, boundaries.
If every single interaction revolves around their football performance, you actually risk suffocating their development as a whole person. They need space to explore other interests, whether it's music, reading, science, hanging out with friends who don't play football.
That balance fuels their longevity in the sport, doesn't it? Prevents it from becoming their entire world.
Exactly. It keeps perspective.
Okay, so to summarize the findings from this really invaluable guidance in the Coaches Hub, the real home advantage isn't rooted in trophies or extra skill drills. It's purely about the mindset, the confidence, and the motivation that parents consciously, deliberately shape.
And that foundation, that's what ensures a love for the game that lasts. And perhaps more importantly, it builds a transferable growth mindset they can use for the rest of their lives in whatever they do.
So what does this all mean for you listening? I think the ultimate gift you can give your young player is that unwavering assurance that their worth, their value as a person is completely separate from their results on a pitch.
Yeah. Your belief in them as people is the deepest, most sustained level of support you can possibly offer. That's the real game changer.
Absolutely. And here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on based on everything we've discussed from the Coaches Hub. If we accept that the growth mindset is fundamentally built through effort and repetition, and we know setbacks are absolutely inevitable in sport,
Guaranteed.
how can you, this week, shift your language to deliberately celebrate your child's response to a specific failure? Maybe getting back up quickly after being tackled hard, or encouraging a teammate after they missed a chance, rather than focusing purely on the outcome of that play or that mistake. Think about praising that precise moment of resilience.
That shift in focus could make all the difference. Something to think about.
That's it for this episode of the Coaches Hub podcast, powered by Soccer Profile. Creating a supportive soccer home isn't about perfection, it's about presence. The routines you build, the mindset you model, and the encouragement you give all shape how your child experiences the game. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and visit www.soccer-profile.com for more insights and resources to help players grow on and off the pitch. Thanks for listening, and remember, the greatest advantage any young player can have is a supportive home behind them.